Hey y'all, so we are back from our recent visit to the dermatologist, and I want to get into the details with y'all. But before I get started, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. So I went in just a few days ago. I'm recording this video on Wednesday, and I went in this past Monday, and I got up to the doctor's office once I found it because it was pretty big, just the hospital, and I had to kind of navigate my way there. But the directions they gave me were pretty good. I will say, girl, having to pay for parking at the hospital, like, can we talk about barriers? Like, you should not have to pay to park. The first 30 minutes were free, but after that, I believe it was $5. I hope it was $5 for however long you stayed and not, per hour. But didn't have to pay for parking, didn't like that much. But once I got up, y'all, I was greeted pretty quickly. Wasn't in the lobby too long before going to meet with the doctor. And first, like, the medical assistant came in and got that like preliminary information. Now, this is my first time going to a dermatologist in years, y'all. So I wasn't like nervous to go to the dermatologist, but it was definitely, something new that I've done. Like I said, I haven't been in years, at least since 2022. And I just went because I needed some meds for my scalp, because my scalp was breaking out at that time too. And I haven't been back since. So went in, a medical assistant came in, got the information, and then the doctor came in. Well, both doctors came in. So an allergist and a dermatologist came in, and they said, hey, the allergist will meet with you first, and then the dermatologist will come in after. And I was like, okay, cool. So she started out, with asking some preliminary questions. Tell me about where you have been having the breakouts. Do you have any rashes with them? How long have you, noticed this? And I talk about this all the time, right? But my scalp definitely has been breaking out for like years now at this point. It will do that at least once or twice a year, where I'll get the itchy pus-filled bumps. It'll be really tender. Sometimes I'll have big flakes. It'll definitely be red and sore, and it will just be uncomfortable. And sometimes I will have to take an antibiotic, which I started taking to just clear it up, because it had been about 3 weeks that my scalp was just not getting all the way better. Like, the bumps had kind of subsided, but there was still some soreness, and I had just a few bumps with pus left. So that's what prompted me to go to the allergist to see, is it something that I am allergic to? I showed her some pictures I had, and then she talked with me, about just the allergy test process. Now, I didn't know this, so if you're going to get an allergy test, get into what you can expect. All right, y'all, I had to go and get my folder, because she actually gave me a helpful folder with just more information about the allergy test. And I will say, just this whole process was very educational. Like, the allergist, the dermatologist, they were really big on just educating me. And as an educator myself, I definitely appreciated that. So some things to be aware of, y'all. Let's just get into it. And I'm just going to read the blurb so folks can just have a better understanding of what the allergy test consists of. So allergic contact dermatitis, an allergy caused by chemicals that get in contact with your skin, is a delayed type of allergy in which a reaction usually appears several hours or days after the skin is exposed to the chemical. For this reason, patch tests for allergic contact dermatitis are different from prick or scratch tests for allergies, from things you ingest like food or drink, or things you inhale like respiratory allergies. Unlike the prick or scratch test, the results for the patch test are read immediately after each clinic. Now, this was something that I did not know. So the patch test takes about a week. So you're going to come back at least 3 times that week. So she was like, if we did it on a Monday, you come back on Wednesday, and then you come back on Friday, and they tell you the results right then. So as a result, you'll visit the clinic for the test, then return in 2 to 3 days, and again in 4 to 5 days for us to read and interpret the results. And that was one thing she told me, because I was like, how will I, know what's the time frame on to learn if I am allergic to, something. And she said that they read the patch test right then, and immediately. Now, they did say, that you shouldn't be taking things like steroids because it could affect the readings. Also, if you do have an allergic reaction, then they provided some guidance on what to take for that. So I was like, okay, ooh, this is kind of like a commitment, which is something that's important for folks to know, because if you go and get a patch test and you got a busy work life or a home life, you're gonna have to take some time to really place to the side to be able to dedicate to this. And then also they may ask you to bring in just different products that you're using, because that will help them to be able to say, okay, see, this has these ingredients and you are allergic to that. So she did a good job of just informing me, asking, lots of questions for me, continuing to educate me throughout the process. And then the dermatologist came in. Now, here's where things got interesting, right? Because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get an allergy test. Thanks for the information. But then the dermatologist came in, and there were more questions asked about my alopecia, which I had already told the allergist anyway. And she kind of informed him as well. She has CCCA. She's had it for this many years. And I did have a biopsy that confirmed that, meaning that they took a piece of my scalp, looked at it under a microscope, and they were able to determine that. So it's not just like somebody, told me that. No, it was a medical procedure that was done by a real dermatologist. And so he said, okay, well, those results are pretty definitive, and a lot of Black Americans do have CCCA. And he said, but I don't believe that you need an allergy test. It sounds like that this is something, that may be happening to your scalp, after you touch something, and then you touch your scalp, and then, there's a breakout, which I have been told that before by another dermatologist. She said, something happens where, like, you go in the grocery store, you touch the milk, then you get in a car, scratch your head, and whatever was on that milk, now it's on your scalp and you have a breakout. So that was something that I had heard before, which is why definitely I always, as soon as I get back in the car now, like, I'll put some hand sanitizer on, or once I get home, I will wash my hands, just because you never know what's on your hand, right? You can't see germs, at least all of them. So he was like, yeah, I don't believe that you need an allergy test. And he asked me, so what do you know, like, about CCCA, about alopecia? And I told him, from my understanding, I believe that it's an autoimmune issue, and like your body is attacking your hair cells or whatever, hence you don't grow hair. He was like, I'm not too sure about that. CCCA, is caused just by different techniques that can be done on the hair, like the tight hairstyles, the hot tools. Those things definitely contribute to them, which of course, we all know that. But he was like, in looking at your, hair, you do have like a lot of good hair growth. I think that you should take minoxidil. And I was like, what, like the Rogaine? Because before that, like, he asked me, he said, have you done, have you heard of any treatments, things of that nature? And I said, yeah, like Rogaine. And he said, yeah, that is a treatment, but there is something called minoxidil, which is kind of like the same thing, but it's in a pill form, and it comes in different dosages. So he was saying, you know, that I think that that would be good for you because you do have a lot of viable hair follicles. And he said, I'm taking it. And I looked at his hair and it looked pretty full. And I was like, okay. He said, you know, that dermatology is what he specializes in, is what his clinic specializes in, which is specifically alopecia. And he was like, you know, we have seen great results with this. We'll start you on 2.5 milligrams. You know, is it something that you'd be open to? And I said, you know, okay, you know, why not? I'll take it. And then, you know, he wrote the prescription. And I actually picked it up yesterday. But it's just, you know, a pill. And he said, you know, some side effects are, you know, that you could grow hair, you know, on your face and things of that nature. I was like, a child, I already be waxing on my mustache, so you know, we'll just make sure we, you know, maybe increase that as needed. And then he also, you know, educated me on the medication. So he said that, you know, this was a medication that was utilized for folks with high blood pressure, and they saw that it wasn't really doing much for blood pressure, but that it was growing hair. And it has definitely been just really good for that. So I was like, okay, you know, I'm open to it. I'll try it. I took my first dose this morning. But I also kind of like started thinking about, you know, do I want to like grow my hair back? You know, not really. You know, I think I always keep at least the sides in the back shaved. So that was something that I've kind of been like toying with. You know, like, do I want to like have like hair again? I don't think so. You know, honestly, I probably would say no, because that was just a whole lot. But a little cute, you know, curly fro, tapered cuts, you know, I don't have any qualms, you know, about that. So I'm gonna keep y'all updated on this minoxidil journey. Y'all drop down in the comments, let me know. Anybody else tried minoxidil, the pill form? What milligram? What did you, you know, notice from it? What did you not notice from it? Any uncomfortable side effects other than what I've stated? You know, if you saw hair growth, you know, on your face, was it like werewolf? Or was it like, you know, cute and demure and you just waxed it off? Drop down in the comments and definitely just let me know that. I'll actually be traveling soon. I mean, I won't be getting my hair cut for a few weeks, so I'll really be able to see, you know, what this growth looks like. I'll be taking y'all on that journey with me. Listen, girl, and I noticed like the doctor, baby, he had hair growing out of his ears. So I was like, listen, but you might want to take this, Alexis. So we are starting something new. I'm gonna let y'all know. Drop them in the comments. Let me know what are your thoughts, and don't forget to check out this playlist here. Bye. So here's what the minoxidil looks like. It's just, you know, a little pill. Oh God, hold on. If I can get it out. It is just a little pill. And 2.5 milligrams, and I am just taking one per day.